So basically, if you look at step five, you had to choose an archetypal plot structure. Do you remember choosing one?
Yeah, I do.
Do you know which one you're going to be using?
I think I just picked any.
No, it has to be specific because
I
what I'm
picked
trying to, yeah,
tragedy.
tragedy. Why? Why'd you pick tragedy?
I'm actually not even sure.
Do you know? Okay, basically, I want you to think about it like this, right? You know, the reason why I'm making you guys do this is because what I'm trying to get you to do is to understand the choices that professional authors have to make. Because when you guys analyze, one of the things you need to try and understand is why do you think this particular story, for example, what text are you studying for your Shakespeare, your modern text, and your Victorian text? What are you studying?
For Shakespeare, it's Macbeth. For the modern literature one is
Inspector Calls, what's your Victorian text?
it was the Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol, right. And I'm supposed you're doing power and conflict poetry, are you?
Yes, yes, we are.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's think about this, right? So you've got Macbeth, Inspector Calls, and Christmas Carol, okay? Now,
Yeah.
let's say, for example, Macbeth, which plot structure does that use? If you have a look at this selection here, what does it use? Or was it based on?
The last one, H.
Yes. Why? Just forget this part where it says hero's journey, because I put that in, right? But this is actually just like, mm, generally speaking, it's just tragedy. But I put in hero's journey elements in all of them just to give your writing a little bit more drama, basically. So let's say, for example, tragedy. Why is Macbeth a tragedy?
Because he dies at the end.
Yes. And why do you think it's important from Shakespeare's view that he dies at the end?
Because it was very important.
But is an Inspector Calls not important?
Yes.
Is a
Um,
Christmas Carol not important either?
yes.
So that can't be the main reason. There has to be something else. Like what I want you to think about is the story has a message, it has a meaning. And everything that the author chooses helps to explain the meaning of the story, basically, like the moral, the message. That's
Uh,
basically what I'm trying to say. So let's say, for example, Macbeth is a story about a man who's of a high status, a hero, quote unquote, and he ends up dead. What do you think the message behind that is?
is it like I'm
It could
actually
there
not
could be
even
many there could
sure.
be many things to be fair.
Like
Yeah.
punishment.
Okay. In what sense? Like what you mean?
Like like he's done something bad, so then he would
Yeah.
have to die in return because he killed someone. So then
Yeah.
it would only make sense for him to be killed.
Right. It could be, right? And it could also there's when you really get into it, you'll see there's quite a few different things. So if you look at it from, let's say, a medieval Christian perspective, right? Because
Yeah.
the tragic plot structure is very old. It comes from the ancient Greeks, 2,500 years ago. So from the ancient Greeks, from that time, generally speaking, when we're looking at the tragic plot structure, it's a way of criticizing two things: the society that we live in and its values, and also the personal, how do I say, the personal faults of individuals. So, for example, overambition. So it's a way of showing what happens when we become overambitious, right? Being ambitious is a good thing, but when you're overambitious, that's a bit of a problem, right? If you look at it from an medieval Christian perspective, they had a saying. I'm trying to think of the saying. So for them, tragedy was a way of saying, yeah, be careful of chasing transient earthly pleasures, right? Be careful of chasing transient earthly pleasures. Transient meaning it comes and goes, right? Earthly pleasures. It's like be careful of chasing these things that we just enjoy in this world: money, fame, all this kind of stuff. They come and go. They don't last very long,
Yeah.
and they can actually destroy in the end. So that's the thing, is that it has that meaning. So whereas let's say, for example, with an Inspector Calls, what plot structure do you think that uses? It's one of these as well.
Spectacles. Rags to riches. B.
Who goes from poverty to wealth in that story?
No one.
So, because rags to riches means to go from poverty to wealth, like Slumdog Millionaire, for example. I think Jane Eyre as well.
I can't quite remember the spectacles. Like I need to read it again.
Oh, okay, fine. So basically, that one is actually what we call a coming of age story.
What
Okay.
does that mean?
Coming of age means that the characters go from ignorance to maturity. That's what maturity is. We are going from a state of ignorance to understanding the problem, the situation. That's what coming of age means, right? So, for example, Sheila is very ignorant in the beginning, but she understands the problems that caused the death of Eva Smith by the end of it. She goes from ignorance to knowledge. So that's what we mean by coming of age. Last one, Christmas Carol. What plot structure does that use? It doesn't use coming of age or tragedy, so you can eliminate those.
Rebirth and redemption.
Why?
Mainly the redemption bit, because like he's kind of, turning for his sins because he's done a lot of bad stuff.
Exactly. It's a character that goes from bad to good, right? And can you see that each one has a message attached to it? You see that?
Yeah.
So when the author is deciding how to structure their text, they're going to think very carefully, not just about here, I'm getting to think about plot structure, but this rule applies to everything the author writes in their text. Everything. The genre, the word choice or lexical choice, as we call it, the choice of language techniques and structural techniques, all that stuff. The specific, like, for example, if you look at something like Macbeth, for example, you actually spend a lot of time basically in the mind of a very troubled character. He's really like struggling with himself. There's very little of the text where you see him truly heroic. In fact, I'm not sure you even see him heroic at all. We hear about his heroism. He was heroic in battle, but when we see the character himself, he is always in a state of just like doubt and trouble, and he hallucinates a lot, and he's talking to himself a lot. He's always talking to himself. And if you notice the atmosphere of the play, it's very dark. It's actually what you would call a proto-Gothic type of text. It's very, very dark. It takes place at nighttime. There's witches, there's supernatural hallucinations. He sees ghosts.
I want Mastery to be like that.
Yeah. He talks about scorpions in his mind. He says, "So full of scorpions is my mind, my dear," or something like that to his wife, And then by the end, and then you see by the end, he's completely nihilistic. You know what nihilistic means, right?
What does that mean?
Nihilistic is when you lose all hope in the meaning of life. All hope. You're just ready to give up on this world. You're like, I've had enough. That is Macbeth's state at the end. He is completely nihilistic at the end. It's actually, when you really, really study it properly, you'll see it's actually a very dark text. I actually didn't realize this until I started like generating these images. I'll show you quickly. To do this book, I had to obviously generate these images. And if you have a look at the images, right, everything is, there's lots of satanic imagery, lots of like twisted biblical imagery, act like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it, witches, the supernatural. Macbeth is very closely associated with the devil, serpentine imagery. At the end, who's his final companion? It's a guy called Satan. Satan sounds very similar to Satan.
If I was to make this reference like in an exam, would you think that would be a bit too common?
Oh yeah, basically, look, what matters is how good your reference is. You can reference anything you want, and that's why I put it in here. You can reference everything you want, but it has to be convincing the way that you do it. It has to be convincing, right?
Right.
But I would encourage you to try and write about these things, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to write about just the same old things that everybody else writes about, because it's just, all that'll happen is you'll just end up in the average bucket, basically. One of the things you guys want to try and do is write about things that other people are not going to talk about. So, for example, nobody knows that the tragic plot structure is about criticizing the values of a given society. Nobody knows that during the medieval period, the Christians saw it as a way of warning against chasing transient earthly pleasures. And that is appropriate to the text. I was talking about this is Lady Macduff. Macbeth has her murdered with his children. The imagery is so graphic, they don't play it on stage. So and so that you see what I'm saying, right? So because the play takes place so much in the mind of a troubled character, can you see how appropriate the genre is? Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah. The really, really dark imagery, the satanic imagery, the Gothic style of the text, lots of soliloquies as well. Lots of soliloquies. And that's important because Shakespeare wants us to understand who this person is and what they're struggling with. And so for this particular story, it's very appropriate to use that. And then you can then look at the words, the metaphors, the similes, lots of rhetorical questions. He's always questioning all the time. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So what I'm trying to say is this, right? Is that you guys need to try and go through the same process. So when you're thinking about your story, like, what is your story about?
It's about like this boy, this kid, like he's an ordinary kid, but then he has this it's fictional almost. He has this psychic ability to change the reality or something, and he doesn't use it very much because he wants to be very easygoing. Though he keeps on seeing like people around him do bad stuff. Yeah, he has the power to change that. He still refuses to, and it's my until was like until like he sees like a lady being robbed, like this thief stole like her bag, and as he was running away, the climax was aimed specifically like you know when something's happening and you're trying to like realize what's going on. That's where I wanted the climax to be focused on, and as he's running away, he then does something out of like it's like spontaneously. How do I you know when you do something but like you don't need to, just naturally. I don't know the word for it.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's kind of like X-Men, isn't it?
X-Men, I haven't watched that, surprisingly.
Oh yeah, it's X-Men.
No.
Do you know what X-Men is about?
I know what X-Men is. It's like a superhero thing. I haven't really read or watched it.
But they're basically characters with like basically superpowers, and they're mutants. They so they all have some type of mutant gene that gives them some type of power. Some of them can control the powers and some of them can't. And that's like the conundrum of the way that they live, right? So it sounds very similar to that. So just quickly, in what state does your character start? So at first, your protagonist is 15-year-old who lives with their parents and little sister and goes to school every day. They don't have a clear passion or dream and mostly blend in, living a quiet life. Even though they have a unique psychic power, a sense lies and power to sense lies and alter reality based on them. They use it passively, simply noticing small lies around them, especially from their parents. Whoa, that's quite interesting, but never intervene in a major way. They're content to let life flow by without getting too involved. That's quite a cool idea. I like that. So, but where's there's something missing here.
Have I not filled that in? I think that's part of the top box because it's, oh wait, no, it's not.
Separate, yeah. So you need to just have a look at that. Right. So until finally, despite his early resolution to use his power only when necessary, the overwhelming amount of crime and cruelty he sees every day tempts the protagonist to intervene more and more. Each time he acts, his punishments become more brutal and frequent, believing he's making the world better. He starts to justify harsher actions. Oh, wow. And soon he finds himself taking lives. Wow. It's justice. The city begins to whisper about mysterious, gruesome events, but the protagonist is becoming increasingly numb, losing sight. All right. So what would be the most appropriate plot structure then for that?
Can I see the list again? Sure. What is overcoming the monster mean?
Overcoming the monster is when the protagonist has a very, very big and powerful obstacle to overcome. And this obstacle is almost always, if it's a monster, it's an evil force. It's an evil force.
I think I'll choose H, tragedy.
Yeah, it sounds like a tragedy. It does.
I want him to die at the end.
Yeah, you could potentially do overcome the monster, but tragedy sounds more appropriate. And then what you can do is you can still have elements of like overcoming the monster within it, even though tragedy is like your main thing that you focus on. You could still do that.
Yeah.
Because like, for example, with my story is overcoming the monster, but it has elements of tragedy. It has elements of redemption. It has elements of the hero's journey. It also has elements of coming of age. So my character, she starts off very sort of like rebellious against her parents. She changes that. She's ignorant at the beginning. She changes that. She, what else? Oh yeah, she saves her community as well, but she sacrifices herself to do it. So there's a bit of tragedy in there as well, and she's also very heroic as well. So you can decide. So you can have like tragedy as your main thing, and you can just pick and choose other little elements that you want to add in there. Make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I think what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to do step 5. You know.
I'm going to need to what?
Well, I don't know. I was going to say you need to do step 5, but maybe you don't need to do step 5 if you already know.
This is actually one of the most important parts.
Sorry. Okay, fine. But you're going to need to do step 6.
Okay.
Step 6 is quite demanding. I'll be honest with you. It's quite demanding because step 6, technically, what I want you guys to do is outline the whole story in step 6. It's quite demanding.
Yeah.